Like, what's the official guide on the title of the show?
Yeah, celebrating. Yeah.
Well, no, I mean on the actual show. Like,
Lego Star Wars: The Freemaker Adventures
so
is the show.
And I'm Bryan Young. I write for StarWars.com and Star Wars Insider, and I co-host the Full of Sith podcast. And I'm here with...
My name is Leland Chee. I work for Lucasfilm. I'm part of the story group, and I am credited in the show as a creative executive. Plus, I have another credit in it. My name appears there twice. It's like concept to screen person or something. But what really that means is I was there since pretty much, not quite the very beginning, but when they first assembled the team of writers to start working on the show, on the episodes of the show. That's when they brought in, because they needed someone with Star Wars expertise to sort of make sure that this was a new approach to Lego that we hadn't really taken before.
So I want to ask, for those, how many of you in the audience have actually seen the Freemaker Adventures? How many of you are super familiar with it? And how many of you are here to check out and figure out what it might be? So why don't you start with just sort of a pitch about what the Freemaker Adventures is about and who the Freemakers are.
Okay. Well, first I like to go back to like the very beginnings of what is Lego Star Wars and how did that come to be? Because Lego Freemaker Adventures is the evolution of what we've been doing with Lego and Star Wars. Lego Star Wars came out when the first products for Lego came out when Phantom Menace came out. So that was a big risk for Lego because they hadn't done licensed properties before. They'd always had their own properties and they never licensed it out. So for them it was a big risk, and for us it was exploring a new because we had Hasbro as a partner, so it was a new opportunity to bring fans of Lego, fans of Star Wars together. I know when I was a kid growing up playing with Legos, I had some of the space sets. So I'd always try to find a way to make my space set into a Star Wars set. So I gave my little guys the antenna piece to make it a lightsaber.
For me, it was always finding the forest sets to make it Endor and finding anything I could get with snow, like the bases of snow, and using white bricks to build Hoth.
Yeah. So anyway, Lego Star Wars toys come out and it's huge hit. It quickly becomes one of Lego's most popular brands, and then Lego also, from that, starts to license to other brands like Batman and Harry Potter. And so, as part of what Lego was doing with Star Wars, they started creating little commercial shorts. And then, they would, highlight a product, and it'd be this funny little thing, or they'll tell the movies really quickly. And then they got a little more ambitious, and they started doing half-hour specials. And all these half-hour specials, you may have seen some of them. There's the Padawan.
The Padawan Menace.
Yeah. And they were done by, they were written by, most of all of the specials done prior to Freemaker Adventures were done by a Simpsons writer named Mike Price. But all these stories were very parody driven. It's very much in the line of Robot Chicken. He would have lots of characters that would sort of intermingle when maybe they didn't intermingle. So you'd have Darth Maul show up to confront Darth Vader with his six-bladed lightsaber, and just lots of crazy jokes. And then eventually Lego Star Wars, they had a more ambitious series called the Yoda Chronicles. They introduced a new character. It was the first time that they really introduced a new major character. This was a clone that they had created originally for Lego. He was a clone that had a kyber crystal arm. So imagine a clone with force powers. And this clone was named Jet 14. And he had an original story, it was an original character, but it was still, you see those episodes, and it was still very heavily laced in parody. So when we did another one called Droid Tales, which is basically mostly a retelling of the films, There were some Rebels in there. There was some Clone Wars in there. And then there was a little, the last episode of that series, there was a little original story because there was the search for R2-D2 and Akbar shows up. But for this show, we wanted to do something different. And so this is a 13 episode, it's a full season because all the other shows have been half-hour specials. Joy Tales was 4 episodes. This was a full season. And it was a joint effort by Lego, Disney, Lucasfilm to create original story with original characters, and we knew that we wanted to set it in between in the classic era, and so Carrie Beck, who's a member of the story group, was tasked with finding two people to create the show, and so she found these 2 guys. Bob Roth and Bill Motz. These guys are animation veterans. They started off writing for Darkwing Duck back in the 90s. So they worked on shows like Shaolin Showdown, Penguins and Madagascar. So these guys were animation veterans, Disney veterans, and so they at a Comic-Con one night they sort of heard about that there was a show happening, and they after that Comic-Con, because it was a Comic-Con party that they heard of this, and like they left the party, and 2 hours later they had the concept for the show, and the show is about a family, which is unusual for Star Wars because this is a family that is actually a real family that is tight-knit. You've got two brothers, a sister, and then they've got a battle droid named Roger. And
Roger's the best.
You know, usually with Star Wars, you've got the brother and the sister who don't know each other. You've got the son and the father who are, you know, the family thing doesn't usually work out very well in Star Wars. But this was an instance where this was a family of siblings, and they loved each other. And they had to, and they were regular people to start off. So they ran this salvage shop because the whole concept of building with Legos worked so well with this concept of salvaging. So their job in life was to go to battle sites, take parts, and build new ships with them or repair ships. And they have real world problems like how do we pay the rent every year or every month? So you've got Roger, a battle droid, and Roger the battle droid. If anyone's a fan of Clone Wars, Roger is voiced by Matthew Wood, who voiced all the battle droids in Clone Wars. He also voiced General Grievous. So you had this great link to the prequels where you had a battle droid, but this battle droid was a good guy.
He makes cookies.
He makes cookies. Yeah, he didn't have those violent tendencies that his predecessors had. He'd been reprogrammed by this family. So let's get into the family. There's the Freemakers. Like I said, it's 2 brothers and a sister. The oldest is a pilot, and his name is Xander Freemaker, and he's a great mechanic. He's a great. He has this line where he's like, "I'm Xander Freemaker, super ace pilot guy." He's very proud of his skills, and he loves ships. I mean, he can identify any model of ship from a mile away. He knows what chromium smells like. So there's an episode where there's this Naboo starfighter, and he can smell the metal of the Naboo starfighter.
That was a good episode.
Because he loves starfighters so much. The next oldest sibling is Cordy Freemaker. So she's sort of like the mother of the group. She's the responsible one. She's the one that is always getting on everyone. You know, we've got to pay the bills. We've got to get a new job. But she's also kind of like a wheeler and dealer. This is one of the things that I just only found out recently. While Xander was based on the 2 brothers are based on one of the creators' 2 sons. One who is a car aficionado, and the other one is a younger one who we'll get to later. But Cordy was the way that she wheels and deals and try to sort of manipulate people. She was based on an Eddie Murphy character from Trading Places. Very interesting. And then you got the youngest son, Rowan Freemaker, who, he's a 12-year-old kid. As a 12-year-old kid, he doesn't have the greatest attention span. He'll like see something and say, "Ooh, shiny." In the first episode, we discovered that Rowan has a special ability, and this special ability is his ability to detect something called. In Clone Wars and in some of the other lore, we've established that lightsabers are powered by a crystal called a kyber crystal. Well, in this show, we have something called a kyber saber, and how this weapon differs from a standard lightsaber is that the entire blade is made of crystals. And so, what happened is an ancient Jedi built this lightsaber. And assembled this lightsaber with 7 crystals. And what happened is, once he built it, he found out that it was too powerful. First he's using it and sort of appreciating the power of this thing, and then he accidentally destroys the moon of the planet that he's sitting on. And at that moment, he realizes that this weapon is too powerful for anyone to wield, so he takes 7 of his most trusted Jedi, and they separate the parts across the galaxy. And so that sets in motion the series where Rowan Freemaker, the youngest, has this ability to sense where these crystals are. And so that's where the adventure starts, and then it takes us all the way to sort of, you get Vader and the Emperor also know about this kyber saber, and so they are also searching for it. There is a character named Nare who starts off as a friend of the Freemakers. Here's a little spoiler here. She starts off as a friend of the episode of the Freemakers because she wields lightsabers, so they think she's a Jedi. But in the very first episode, spoiler, we find out that she's actually an agent working for Vader and the Emperor. So right away, you've got this Lego show which completely twists your expectations of what a Lego show should be, because one of the good Jedi characters in the very first episode ends up being evil at the very end. So,
I think one of the really interesting things about the show is that it sort of weaves in and out of the events that we know, and with the characters that we know. So you've got cameos from Lando and Luke and Leia, and you see planets like Solist, and that is Solist, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, we see Hoth, and the great thing about this is we can blend all. We don't really call it canon, but we call it. I know the
canon adjacent.
Canon adjacent. We want it to be as faithful to what you know about the film, so we're not gonna be twisting the timeline at all. It's squarely set in the between Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi timeline. So Han Solo can't appear in it unless he's frozen in carbonite. You can't.
And he has.
Yeah.
Frozen carbonite.
And then there's so you can, but we haven't. If there are opportunities for us to throw in cameos, that makes sense. We do a lot of that. So you get a Maz Kanata cameo. There's a whole episode where we go to Takodana, so it ties into to The Force Awakens. You get a lot of prequel references because Roger, obviously being a battle droid, is a element of a reminder of the Clone Wars, and then you go to Clone Wars sites. You go to Naboo.
One question, they're incredibly faithful to the point where they set an episode at the Bunta Eve pod race, and it felt like the track was the same. Like it got to the point where they were building the sets where it looked like they were the right tracks.
Yeah, and you get if you guys are familiar with pod racers, there's a pod racer called Ben Guarneros who's in there. Foden, one of the voices of the pod race announcers, is the voice actor who did the voice in Phantom Menace.
Yeah, great groups.
Yeah.
I want to talk, actually, I've been saying, like literally for weeks since we've been talking about this panel, I want to talk about Kerbal the Hutt. Well, because he plays prominently in that.
When you talk about Kerbal the Hutt, you have to first start with the person who voices him.
Yeah, so Grabala's voiced by a character, well, he is a character, I'm sure. Dana Snyder, who was Master Shake on Aqua Teen Hunger Force. So just kind of put that personality in a hut. And he's kind of a second-rate hut, so he has a second-rate bounty hunter, so instead of Boba Fett, he's got Dengar.
Yeah, and he's got a Toydarian assistant named Yeppo, who through most of the first season, all he says is yep. So he's like a literal yes man.
But you put him in situations where he's chasing after the Freemakers, like it feels like it builds where they're, just the danger builds exponentially, but it's just so funny.
Yeah, and that starts with Dana and casting him as a Hutt, and Dana's a cousin. I think he's a cousin of Jabba. So you have him interacting with Jabba. Grabala does speak English or basic, whatever you want to call it. And so he's always sort of like he's always second tier to Jabba, and all he wants to do is. He wants to just establish his resort and buffet. Yeah, that's his goal in life.
So there's other really recognizable voices on the show outside of him too. I mean, you've got Richard Kind voicing an Imperial officer who's sort of like the laziest Imperial officer ever.
Yeah, well, yeah, and Richard Kind is a animation. He voiced Bing Bong in Inside Out, but he's also been in tons of.
Yeah, you know that guy's face.
Yeah, and that's those two characters. So there's Durpin and Plume Striker, and Durpin's a smart guy. He knows that you know what if you're in the Empire, if you're an Imperial officer and you get promoted, you get one step closer to being choked to death by Darth Vader. So he wants nothing more than to sort of just lie low and not be noticed at all, because he knows that once you get noticed and once you're under Vader's radar, you're on the chopping block.
And it's funny because he proceeds to fail in situation after situation that puts him in a worse and worse position, which is absolutely what he loves, but that puts him in closer contact with the Freemakers and Vader.
Yeah.
The tone of the show is really, really fun, and I'm wondering what it is. As a creative executive on the show, what does your role play in making sure it comes off?
So this is the first show that I've gotten to be a part of the writers' room, which is I don't know if any of you understand how TV series are made, but what they do is the showrunners will come together for a couple days, and what they'll do is they'll break a series of episodes, 4 or 5 episodes, and they have all the writers come in there. So it's a very collaborative process, and you've got not only the showrunners, you've got the writers, you've got representatives from Lego, you've got representatives from Lucasfilm, and it's just imagine like 2 days of brainstorming, like what could we do with Star Wars, and what do we want to see, and Bill and Bob showrunners, they come in with, okay, we need an episode where Xander Freemaker steals a Naboo starfighter. You know, him being a starship connoisseur, what does that mean, and what would he do to it, and
the answer is hilarious. Because you can imagine like what happens when Darth Vader season 2.
Yeah, that was like, because Darth Vader was Anakin as a young kid, so, and he did some amazing things in that starfighter. So what would Darth Vader's reaction be if you saw him in a starfighter?
Kind of like Ferris Bueller.
It could be. No, exactly like that actually. Do you want to take questions?
Sure. Yeah.
We don't have to take questions, but he keeps jumping his hand up and down.
I just wanted to ask when you were talking. I just wanted to ask when you were talking about the setting of the show between Empire and Jedi.
Uh-huh.
A lot of the other stuff that's coming out right now, especially in the comics, is set between New Hope and Empire. And this was intrigued me because this was the only thing we're seeing right now that's in this time period. And do you know if there was a specific decision of why it was put between Empire and Jedi and not New Hope and Empire?
Between 5 and 6.
Yeah,
between 5 and 6, between 4 and 5. I don't think there was any sort of, you wanted to have. If you do between 4 and 5, then you don't get Lando, and if you do between 5 and 6, then you don't get Han. We wanted to have the rebels in a specific position. We wanted the Freemakers to be in a specific position. So it's a bit of an arbitrary decision. I mean, it could have happened between 4 and 5, but if you do it between 4 and 5, then you don't get Hoth, because you know what? No one's been to Hoth yet. So you do it between 5 and 6. All of a sudden, Hoth is where a former battle was, and the Freemakers can logically go there to salvage from that battle.
Yeah, I guess you get more to work with.
Yeah,
So,
absolutely.
can I ask a question about Hondo, who makes a cameo on the show?
Yeah.
Because this is canon adjacent but not canon, would that logically mean that Hondo makes it to the period between
We definitely take those things into consideration. So we definitely believe that Hondo is alive during that period.
Yes.
And you actually, there was a series of one of the connections between Hondo and Maz is that Hondo's symbol, sort of like a pirate symbol, is one of the flags that you see outside of Maz's castle. And that was one of the cool things that we got to do in Force Awakens was like the island department said, we need some flags for this. What kind of symbols should we put up there? So we're giving them, we'll put Hondo's symbol, we'll put
Zagos is in there too.
Zagos is in there too, yeah. So we put a lot of little Easter nods to Rebels, but not the Clone Wars in there. And yeah, we wanted to suggest that there was this connection.
I think Hondo and Maz was hilarious.
Yeah, and Hondo being a pirate, he fits perfectly in that location.
With the scripting, you said like everybody gets in a room and you write a script, and presumably you have a script. But I interviewed the producers, Bill and Bob.
They come up with the basic beats of the story.
So and they were saying like Dana Snyder will come in, and for every like minute that he's on, like there's 30 minutes of material.
I would love to see that, because that happens when they do the recording, and I'm not part of that process, but yeah, they do. I mean, we have someone like Dana Snyder in there who has that ability to improvise. Then the possibilities are insane. Yeah.
So for you work in the writers' room, and you kind of help guide them to, where in canon they can put things, or where.
Yeah, and what planet what would the state of this planet be? What could we possibly do on Naboo? Where on Coruscant what is the Emperor's palace look like? Things like that.
And then the next step is sort of like, what's the next step you're involved after the writers' room, after you've helped given them that guidance?
So at some point they might ask for a reference for something. They'll always have like questions like, one of the first questions that they ask me is, okay, this is what we want to do. We want to have these Freemakers, they salvage parts and they put ships together, but that are just like amalgamations of different types of ships. So if we had a ship that combined an X-Wing and a TIE fighter, what would we call that? And from Star Wars lore, those are uglies. It's something that had been established, and so from that point on, they were using this term uglies to describe all these ships that were these crazy combinations of other ships. Just out of coincidence, another name for uglies that the EU had established was that these things were called Z-Wings. So Xander, who builds these uglies, doesn't like the idea of them being called uglies, so he insists that they be called Z-Wings. And you can maybe infer that he's calling them Z-Wings after himself, or some other general term, but it was just like one of those fun coincidences that fit perfectly.
How often do you get to oversee those fun coincidences? Like, you just connect the dots?
I'll just get random questions from Bill and Bob, a couple questions every week. Sometimes they'll say, we need a ship. We need a luxury ship. What do we do? Oh, well, you know what? That ship in that that Lando had in the EU that appeared in Clone Wars. You know, that's a luxury ship. Why don't we put that in there?
That's really cool.
And then plus the people that work on the show, Lego, they're also big fans, and they come up with these huge lists of. We've got all these ships that we found on Wikipedia about. Is it okay if we put the Star Tours ship in the background? Sure.
I loved the Star Tours ship as it appeared in Rebels too.
Yeah.
Like I love that the Star Tours ships are like getting play in the universe. I love that so much. So we had another question over here.
So you talk about you break a few episodes at a time, and in comedies like The Simpsons, the writers will all be in the room and they'll write the episode together. But in traditional kind of television dramas, you break the episode and then you split, and someone takes the writing responsibility. For
Yeah,
individual
that's exactly
episodes.
yeah.
So how is it for this show?
Yeah, that's exactly what happened. So after that writer's session, the writers get to, okay, I want to do the episode, I want to do the Xander episode, or I want to, and they get doled out that way, and then a month later, or depending where on the schedule. The schedule actually plays a big part of which writers take what, because depending if you're doing an earlier show, that means that the delivery date is earlier. So that sometimes plays a factor. And yeah, the writers will walk away with 1 or 2 episodes to write over the next few months. And then from that point, the writing will go through many drafts. Lucasfilm will approve it. Disney will approve it. And then you've also got so the shows are actually made by a company in Denmark called Willfilm. So there will be an iteration where Bill and Bob will go over that episode, the drafts with the studio at Willfilm, where they will block it, they will block all the action, they will figure out what all the action is and things like that.
So as you're watching, at what point do you get to go? Do you go over the scripts or anything as you're going through them, so that you make sure, like, hey, this detail might be wrong?
So the scripts come in. There's various stages. So the first stage is a premise. So it's like a couple of paragraphs, and then you'll get an outline. That will be reviewed, and then a couple weeks later you'll get an outline, which is maybe a page long or 2 pages long, and then after that you'll get the first draft.
And are they, with Clone Wars and with Rebels, I mean, that's being produced, The Office is Dave Filoni, those guys are all in the Presidio, but these, Bill and Bob, they're LA.
They're in Burbank. They're Burbank, and most of the writers are in Burbank too. So when I go to the writers' club, this is one of the instances where, for Rebels, all the writers will come up to Skywalker Ranch. Well, for the show, I'm actually the one person that goes down to Burbank.
As you've gone through the show and you've watched it, what is it about it that, what is it about it that I've noticed with parody, right? With the more parody Lego things, it was really easy to make jokes that maybe that were just like, hey, this is a joke at the expense of this, and a joke at the expense of that, and a joke at the expense of this, but this really brings the humor into Star Wars and hangs that on the characters and the situations. Absolutely. Rather than just throwing gags at people.
Yeah, and a lot of that is coming from the voice actors. So when you've got Roger Roger voiced by Matt Wood, who's pretty much the same character as he was of the battle droids, except he doesn't have a gun. He's not shooting people. His duty is to be sort of like the butler to the Freemakers. But the characterization is the same. Yeah. He has the same fears that the battle droids always had. I always felt that the battle droids in Clone Wars were sort of the victims, because they would just be tossed into battle, and Grievous would like throw one off the cliff without thinking about it. So these battle droids were just they were completely discarded, and so you're taking this character who has lived his entire life feeling like he was disposable, and now he feels like he is the last of his kind. So you've got that. All of a sudden, you have a battle droid who's like concerned about preservation for the sake of keeping his self intact.
As far as the timeline for Freemaker at the end of the season, without giving anything away, I mean, is it going to be moving past the events of Return of the Jedi? If there's anything more coming?
So the season 1 is 13 episodes. It begins and ends before Return of the Jedi.
So anything can happen. I just keep thinking about the Battle of Jakku and how much sweet salvage all of that would be.
To get to Jakku, the Battle of Jakku doesn't happen until after Jedi.
Like a year after.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
but there's all that sweet
Yeah.
salvage over Endor too.
Yeah.
That's a lot of salvage.
We haven't talked about whether there will be a season 2 or not. Everyone would love for there to be a season 2. Yeah.
I want to see.
At this point, there hasn't been any official announcement.
Okay.
Speaking of connections to Force Awakens, I was just wondering where the idea of the Kyber saber came from. Because in the book, the art, the concept art from the Force Awakens, when they were starting that.
Yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about. There is a saber made of crystal, completely unrelated, but a very cool connection. That was just very coincidental. I mean, the concept artists they come up with 1,000 different concepts, and that one just.
So it was just the creators of the show that came up with the Kyber saber idea.
Got another question back there.
I know you don't know when and if there'll be a season 2, but I mean, the ratings were probably really good for season 1, right? I mean, more than likely there'll be a season 2, right?
Yeah, I mean, it'd be really cool.
Huh?
It'd be really cool. It'd be really cool to have in season 2. If a season 2 were to happen,
I mean, the ratings were probably good for the season 1, right? I mean,
everyone seems to be happy with it.
oh, good. So
Yeah.
when might season 2 happen? Like probably not till next year or something, probably, right?
Yeah, you don't want to have too much of a break in between us, because if you put too much of a gap. So for those who have seen the show, I mean, the show does sort of leave it at a place where there is room to expand on the story.
And with the 13 episodes, will they be on like a Blu-ray or DVD at some point in the near future?
No announcements yet. The show is on Disney XD right now, but you could also get it on various video on demand sites. And the very first episode is actually available on YouTube, I believe. So if you want to check it out, the Disney XD YouTube channel.
Thank you. It's a great show. I hope it gets a season 2.
Yeah. For those of you who have seen the show, like you've come here because hopefully you've enjoyed it. What was it that you've liked about the show?
I like the humor.
The humor, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
I like Darth Sidious.
Darth Sidious, yeah. Darth Palpatine and Vader, they show up. They're the very first scene, and they are recurring throughout the series as the worst bosses for Nare as you could ever have. Palpatine is very much the one character where it does sort of delve into that parody. Palpatine's characterization is very much like the robot chicken.
It reminded me a little bit of actually the scenes that they released at some point of Detours.
Yeah.
A little bit, but they were just terrible bosses.
Which when the little bit of the Detours that they described that as being like it was like being an office. It was described as being like Office Space in Star Wars. So
well, and maybe you can't answer this, and we could just move on to the next question. But I mean, it was sort of the assumption I think people made was that obviously with the new era bringing Darth Vader back, they wanted him to be very serious, and that was that. So Detours kind of took the brand in a different direction, and so that's kind of why it got quashed, even though there was a whole season done, right? And seeing this and seeing similar takes, does this kind of give hope for Detours maybe seeing the light of the day eventually?
Woo! I don't know. I can't really say if this helps or hinders, because if you have a Detour show with a Lego show, I don't know if there's any sort of conflict there.
Mm-hmm. Do you still hear about Detours when people come up and say, like, when is that going to come out?
Yeah, sure. Yeah. For those who don't know what Detours was, there was a series that George had the Robot Chicken creators working on, and they did do enough. They did complete a number of episodes, but then when the Disney acquisition happened, it was decided that Detours would be shelved. So yeah, somewhere in a vault there are all these episodes of this Seth Green created animated series that who knows when it'll ever see the light of day.
I'm not asking. Yeah, I wouldn't try to pin you to like saying like, hey, it'll see it. It's just like it just seems. I want to see all that stuff. That's all. Yes.
You asked earlier, Leland, what really motivated us that we enjoyed about the show, and for us in our household, it kind of comes back to the whole family.
Yeah.
Because in the core trilogy, you have a family that is scattered and comes back together. In Rebels, you have a pseudo family of vagabonds who kind of find each other. But this is like a core family,
Absolutely,
that sticks together, and there's
and even in Rebels there was the whole element of Ezra trying to find his parents, and that's something that they resolved pretty early on. This series doesn't even touch that. It doesn't even touch the parents at all. It is this is the family, and one of their sayings, you get to a point in the episode where the Freemakers have this saying: the Freemakers fly together or they don't fly at all.
Exactly. There's that sense of loyalty. And the other thing that we really like is Roger, because to us, when we talk about it in the house, he's what we kind of wanted Jar Jar to be in the prequels, right? And that he's comedic, but he's not annoying, but yet he reminds us of all the good things of the prequels.
Yeah. I mean, he's got a degree of faithfulness to the loyalty to Rowan especially. But then he does have that self-preservation going on there, and also he does bumble a little bit. He burns his cookies. He might spill some beverage onto on the controls of a ship, causing it to go into hyperspace. So he does have that bumbling aspect. And then there's instances where he does get redemption, where he'll do something, and it's like, oh, he gets this heroic moment. There's one episode where called The Maker of Zoe, which I'm not going to give any spoilers as to who or what the Maker of Zoe is. But Roger, the Freemakers end up on a planet that is that's populated by droids, and Roger has to make a decision about whether he could live on this planet with the droids, enjoying the oil bath, or he can stay with the Freemakers, and he does the right thing.
I have to say one of the things I love the most about the show, and that pulled me in and got me there, is part of the reason I didn't start watching it right when it started coming out was that I felt a little bit burned by the previous Lego offerings, because it was parody, and some of those easy jokes are at the expense of stuff I really, really like and don't necessarily find funny, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Like they were easy gags at the expense of like the prequels.
Yeah.
And this doesn't, it has that reverence for them that made, because it was always a weird choice for me to watch that with my kids because they really loved them. And so now, like, this kind of brings it all together where you have, like, Roger, who's that avatar of the prequels where everybody loved like, my daughter, her favorite was the battle droids. Well, she had a lot of favorites, but the battle droids were hilarious to her on Clone Wars. And Roger brings that to Freemaker.
And I can tell you, there's one individual that pretty much made that all possible. If you love Rebels, Rebels was one of the creators of Rebels was a member of the story group named Carrie Beck, and she is one of the creators on this show, and she's the one that helped find Bill and Bob. So you have a lot of the DNA from Rebels with Carrie and the story group involved, and it was definitely a concerted effort to sort of make these stories more compelling, add the heart that maybe some of the other ones, the previous Lego specials didn't have the overarching story that the previous specials didn't have, and just a greater attention to story that story group brings.
No, and that's exactly what I love about it. It really is. I mean, it's I think something special. It's really, I mean, it's not just funny. I mean, there's parts where it gets to the core of being a family. It gets to the core of sticking together. It gets to the core of just what that
It has all the drama, all the intense action of any of our other canonical stories. And it just happens that it's got a Lego flair to it. And one of the cool things about it is that it very much is a Lego show as much as it is a Star Wars show. So if you've ever played the Lego video games, force building is a huge component of the show. So being able to assemble Legos to create a ship using the Force is a part of the show, and that's something that you would never bring into canon.
Yeah.
You have there is the notion that, you know what, they are plastic figures, so we don't kill them, but we also can allow them to breathe in space. So at one point there's Wick Cooper ends up, his ship blows up and he goes flying, and then, you know what, he's in the next episode. So there are some liberties that we take that acknowledge that these are Legos. Their hair will fall off. They'll crash and their hair will fall off, and they'll have to put their hair back on. If you are familiar with the Legos sets themselves, there's a piece that comes with certain sets that's the brick separator. It's this orange piece that's used to separate pieces. Well, that's an actual thing in this show that is, to the Lego figures, it's like this. To the characters in the show, it's this big. It's actual size. So again, it's something that is very, very much Lego Star Wars as part of the DNA of the show.
It's were there any more questions? Yes, so you've got the microphone. I know I lost it somewhere.
Just going back to Roger, is there any tie between Roger and the battle droid that's in the new Aftermath?
Mr. Bones.
Mr. Bones.
Yeah, Mr. Bones. Is there any tie between those?
Mr. Bones is a little. Mr.
Mr.
Bones is a little more violent.
See, I'll be honest, half the reason I was asking about Jakku is because I want to see Roger and Mr. Bones in a scene together.
But as far as the genesis of those characters, completely separately. Chuck Wendig was doing his thing, and Bill and Bob were doing their things, and I knew that we were doing it, but it was going to be Lego. They were different, and it's cool.
And I would say if you like Roger, then check out Chuck Wendig's Aftermath books, because Mr. Bones, they're spiritual brothers, and they're both hilarious.
Yeah. Awesome.
Is there any other possibility of seeing anything else coming in from Rebels besides just Hondo?
Anything else? That's obviously in the show. In season 1, is there anything from Rebels?
I mean, I think Hondo's probably the biggest one. I can't think. I didn't notice anything off the top of my head unless there was some Easter eggs I missed, like, maybe the ghost flew by or something and I didn't notice.
The Ghost did appear in the Freemaker, not the Force Awakens. There were shorts for Force Awakens where the Ghost appeared on Jakku. I'm not sure if there are, but there's if we ever were to do another season, that would definitely be a potential.
What more do you need than Hondo? Hondo's so funny. I think that's what's great about the show.
I think one of the things that the Rebels story is not finished yet. So if we were to put elements from Rebels in there, that puts stakes in the ground as to, this character survived Rebels, so we don't want to telegraph too much about Rebels. So that's why we were apprehensive about putting too much Rebels content in there, because we don't want to sort of like hinder ourselves with that show.
And get jerks like me going like, so Hondo lived through all of that?
Yeah. Because Rebels takes place before Episode 4, so there's a 7 or 8 year gap and between the shows. So we need to give Rebels its space to be able to tell their stories.
Is there any chance that we're going to get any characters, kind of aged characters, who appear in Force Awakens, to appear a little bit earlier in their lifespans?
Maz Kanata.
Yeah.
It's all the same episode.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
So I should have said, besides Maz.
Yeah. I mean, that's really
Apologies.
difficult. I mean, we wrestled with the publishing program, because there aren't a lot of characters that you can introduce earlier on. I mean, Rey and Finn are off the table.
It's all just Laura Santeca. Nobody cares about him but me.
And me.
We care about Laura Santeca. We care.
I care.
The great thing about Laura Santeca is he is that prized commodity where he is somebody that would have been around during that era, that has a connection to Luke and Leia. So if we're gonna do something with Lawrence, it's gotta be, because we don't have that many characters that we can do that with. So we want to do something right with that.
You guys cast Max von Sydow, so I'm assuming there's big plans for him at some point, whether you know what they are yet or not.
I don't know how we de-age Max von Sydow, but
Well, no, I mean he was
big
good.
round of that actor.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I really liked Lars Santek.
Yeah. We want to do great things with the Force.
Thank you.
So we've got 5 minutes, so we've got time for just another, we've got one question back there, actually. We've got time for probably, no, right in front of you. You were trying to ask a question, yes?
I watched the show and I liked all the wacky ships that they made. What was your favorite of all of them?
What's my favorite ship? The two main ships of the show are the Freemaker ship, the Star Scavenger, and then Nari's ship is the Eclipse Fighter, and the Star Scavenger is this show's Millennium Falcon. It is very much a character in the show. Things happen and you're sad, you're happy. It has its own story arc. So Star Scavenger is definitely one of my favorite ships. But
Well, they're making those now too. Like they've got Lego sets.
that's
for
what,
it.
yeah. The Starfish Scavenger and the
Nara ship.
Nari ship, the Eclipse Fighter, are both stores that that you can find in stores. Grabala has his own ship that looks, it's like a sail barge, but imagine a sail barge that's space-worthy. So Grabala has his own ship called the Rancor's Fist. Yeah.
Yes, sir.
What is your favorite character in the Freemaker Adventures?
Well, you go ahead. I know what.
Grabala the Hutt. No, as I watched through that show, like Grabala the Hutt, it just makes me laugh. Like he has so many subtle, hilarious moments. He has Dengar. He tries to hire Boba Fett because Dengar sucks and he knows it, but he's like, but Boba Fett's not having any of it. He appeared in that episode with like a toque and a scarf, even though like it really didn't matter and it was like a fashion statement. That stuff's funny. I don't know, like I was a big fan of Aquatine Hunger Force, so Grabala the Hutt just works. Like I was a fan of Zero the Hutt too, so I just really like bizarre personalities and Hutts.
Yeah, it's so hard to pick a favorite because there's so many great main characters. There's so many great supporting characters. One of the biggest points was the Maker of Zoe episode, where you find out who the Maker of Zoe was, and that was for me personally, that was a big reveal. And I'll just sort of leave it at that.
You had a question.
Yeah, I was just wondering, can you clarify what did you call it? Canon adjacent? Adjacent canon?
Canon adjacent.
That's a term that Bill and Bob had come up with. But the idea is that this is very much, it's steeped in both Star Wars and Lego, and you can't have a Lego brick separator in the canonical Star Wars universe. But at the same time, everything that we put in the show is authentic to the film, is authentic to where we are in the storyline. So we're not going to throw in characters that shouldn't canonically be there.
Does that extend to the Kyber Saber?
That's definitely an interesting point. But whether the Kyber crystals is from Clone Wars, so the idea that you get the crystals.
A saber that you can a link to the past to destroy a moon, though. You know, that's like a Zelda sword shooting and destroying a moon. That's not so much. Like, that's probably, like, that would break Star Wars the same way all the Force powers in Genndy Tartakovsky's Clone Wars would.
That is definitely a sort of hyped up superpower to be able to wave your sword, have a blast that goes on to infinity, wiping out.
But the background is all canon.
Yeah, and we use canonical locations with canonical ships, and we try to draw from existing material as much as possible, so you're going to get a lot of EU vehicles or EU locations in there. And even like the name-dropped planets, the mines of Grabala take place in the Belgoroth asteroid belt, which is a location in Legends. That came from Legends.
Does that answer your question?
Yeah, so basically their story is not canonical, but everything else is.
Do they exist in the canon?
Do they exist?
Are the Freemakers, like if we went over to, you know, the
Could we see the Freemakers in
yeah.
another non-Lego story? And really, that's to be seen. Yeah. Looks like
Thank
we're
you.
being asked around.
Yeah, we are out of time. I hope you guys all check out the Freemaker Adventures. And thank you, Leland, so much for coming on that.
And thank you for the great coverage. It's great to hear that get the love for the show. So thank you very much.